Hi there, I'm Scott Lowe with ActualTech Media, and I'm here today with Jon Hildebrand, who is Principal Technologist for Cohesity. John, good to see you.
Same here, Scott.
It's been too long.
No, it has.
There's a lot of stuff happening here at Cohesity.
They talk about rocket ships and they talk about acceleration and all sorts of things, and it seems like every other week we've got something new coming out of the pipeline.
Now, how long have you been with the company now?
Oh, since mid-June of last year, so I'm now a grizzled veteran in startup space.
Very good. Now, there's backup, there's ransomware, there's storage, there's cloud, there's all kinds of interesting things happening with Cohesity. Why don't we start talking about some of those?
Well, so recently we had announced some capabilities around, say, ransomware detection. Mm-hmm. So last August we announced Helios, which is kind of our global domain manager. Its original idea was to help with multi-domain management, especially if you're a large enterprise, large organization with multiple Cohesity nodes disparate across the organization, maybe multiple data centers, robo use cases, the whole 9 yards. But some of the things that we've started to add to the mix, everybody always gets up in arms about machine learning and things like that. But one of the things that we've noticed is from an initial perspective, there's sometimes some power in learning patterns based off of things, say like data ingest rates. And when you're a backup provider, guess what you get to see a lot of the times coming in?
Every single day.
Correct. So maybe you can use that as kind of a first stage flag as something that, hey, something might be going on, especially if you're running some sort of abnormal pattern at that point. Now, granted, sometimes being that far out front, it may not work as well. I mean, you're still fine-tuning some things, like a Microsoft Windows patch Tuesday might freak it out once in a while type of idea. But really what that leads into is if you can properly detect it and maybe definitely dig into it with other tools later, maybe you can get to the root of the problem before it becomes an even bigger problem as these things lay stagnant or sit in the bushes and wait before they branch out and start taking out your organization. And to kind of segue on top of that, we've always had our instant mass restore capabilities, and to kind of merge into it, if we identify a problem, and especially if it's en masse, we can utilize that feature to recover back to a point in time in a much more rapid fashion than I would say, some competition can do.
So basically, you can identify the pattern based on the historical view you have into a customer data set, and you can complete the loop as far as getting data back very quickly in an automated way without a lot of manual steps in the way.
Correct, and that's one of the things when you dig into our instant mass restore feature. So it's not just about utilizing the Cohesity platform and being able to present the data and for recovery instantly. It's also about taking it and moving it to the final destination and completing that loop, essentially bringing it back to where it was when you started the process, instead of having to rely upon stitching and taping together either scripts or some sort of other API mechanism to make it happen.
And so from a customer perspective, this is not brand new, but have you had customers that have actually been able to benefit from this yet?
Yes. Well, we've had a couple, I would say, that I've heard specifically from a ransomware perspective, but the instant mass restore feature is one of the things that we've hung our hat on for quite some time. So that one has always been out there, and when it's used to essentially save an organization in some capacity, whether it's an oops, I deleted something, or ransomware is running rampant and I need to bring things back from an hour or two before the ransomware activated, or whenever they can identify when it's clean at that point. So it's been a nice feature, and I know from my perspective, being here for 8-9 months, it's a very impressive feature on top of it compared to where we were 10-20 years ago with responses like this.
Yeah, well, you didn't have responses like this. You couldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't there. So what else is going on?
Well, so as you can imagine, with the cloud components that are coming out. Cloud, yeah. It's that mystical thing that CIOs believe just everything's magically taken care of.
You know what's funny is they didn't used to. CIOs used to look at the cloud with a lot of skepticism and be like, oh, no, we're not doing the cloud. Now they're just like, the cloud can do anything. Some of them anyway.
Well, it's amazing how far pendulums swing to the left and then to the right and back and forth. But when we get into our cloud portfolio, especially since Google Cloud Next was happening this week, and we all know VMworld's going to be right around the corner, and then the usual Microsoft Ignite and AWS reInvent to end the year, that cloud's always at the forefront. And we're continuing to expand with the Google Cloud Backup Service that we've announced this particular week, and then continuing on with just being able to do things like protect cloud native workloads, which is something you asked me 6 months ago, that wasn't even in the portfolio. So now being able to kind of end-to-end work from on-premises to the cloud, hybrid stops in between, we can kind of help in a lot of places in cloud journeys for a lot of enterprises, especially when it comes to data protection.
One of the things that's been interesting is as people started to talk a few years ago about hybrid cloud, there was this idea that you were just going to be able to seamlessly shift things all over the place. But reality got in the way. But it's actually happening now. Things can start here, stop here, and end over here. And for anywhere from on-premises to in the cloud or wherever. And companies like Cohesity are bringing that to reality, which is really finally nice to see. It's a pretty interesting abstraction opportunity to. Doesn't matter what the cloud is in a lot of cases either.
Yeah, and that's what I would also argue at the same time. We talked about the CIOs with their beliefs that they've been fed now for a couple of years from either analysts or press or things like that.
Are you telling me that analysts don't always tell the truth? Or don't always know what the end users actually need?
Hey, you said it, not me. But there's a lot of potential misinformation that they're basing decisions on, especially when it comes to, say, data protection in the cloud. Like for instance, we've added things like Office 365, specifically Exchange Online. If you go traditionally look at what's provided by Microsoft, most of those retention policies and the way that they handle the data within those particular platforms, they fall way short of most corporate retention policies.
Yeah, 7 to 30 days in a lot of cases.
Well, yeah, and in some cases, maximum of 30 days. So if you, say for instance, if you throw something into the deleted items folder from an O365 perspective, it will stay there for 30 days, and then it's gone on day 31.
Right.
You can never recover that unless you have something else watching the system. So SaaS applications in general are now starting to become the location where most folks are losing data. Maybe not necessarily to malicious intent, but this is where you get, you probably remember back in the day how many times, I had to recover so-and-so's Excel document
From
because,
6 years ago.
Yeah, or even, whoops, I messed that one up. I need a copy from 2 days ago.
Right.
So now apply that principle with the end users to SaaS applications and you're ripe for data loss. So trying to protect that now is becoming kind of the new cloud battleground, so to speak, when it comes to the right locations to start targeting.
I think that's a really important thing for people to remember is, and I still do consulting and I hear this a lot, well, once we moved it to O365 or to Google or to whatever, it's not my problem anymore. And it kind of is. I think people forget the idea that data protection and security in a cloud scenario, especially a hybrid cloud scenario, are shared responsibilities. It's not an abdicated responsibility from the organization. And you're helping them solve those problems.
Yep, and so working along, trying to add more SaaS capabilities into the portfolio, and just trying to make sure that all the different very popular data sources that folks are using, that we have some sort of protection capability so that we can encompass what an entire enterprise might be using.
Very good. John, this was a great discussion. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Scott.
And thank you to our audience for watching this video.